Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to show you how to work this problem from section 5.2. And it says assume that when adults with smartphones are randomly selected, 53% use them in meetings or classes. If 5 adult smartphone users are randomly selected, find the probability that exactly 2 of them use their smartphones in meetings or classes. So this is a case where we have a situation where we're randomly selecting 5 adult smartphone users, and we're trying to determine the probability that exactly 2 of them say that they would use their smartphones in meetings or classes, knowing that 53% of the population says that they would use smartphones in meetings or classes. Now, it turns out this is a binomial distribution, and there's really 4 things you have to check to see if it's binomial. And so let's just run through those. The first one is that you have to have a fixed number of trials. And in this case, the trials are 5, fixed at 5. You have to have 2 outcomes every time you run a trial. And in this case, when we run a trial, someone would say that they either use their smartphone in meetings or classes or they don't. And the third thing is the trials need to be independent of each other. And we're sort of assuming that. We're assuming that 2 adult smartphone users are independently choosing to use their smartphones during meetings or classes. I guess technically it's possible that someone could influence someone else to use their smartphone during a meeting or a class. But we're assuming that that's not the case, just so that we get a binomial distribution. So we are assuming that these trials are independent of each other, so that everyone independently chooses whether to use their smartphone in a meeting or a class. And then the fourth condition you need for a binomial distribution is you need to have a fixed number of a fixed probability for each trial that you run. And in this case, we're told that every time you run a trial, there's a 53% chance that an adult who uses a smartphone would say that they use them during a meeting or a class. So that's given here, right? That's this 53%. And so that has to remain fixed every time you run a trial. Okay. So this does have a binomial distribution since it satisfies those 4 conditions. And you can find this probability, right? We're trying to find the probability that exactly 2 out of the 5 that we survey would say that they use their smartphone during a meeting or class. And so you can find that on the TI-84 calculator. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So first thing, let me pull up this calculator, the TI-84 calculator. So to find it on the calculator, you just have to go to this distribution button, and notice that this is a blue button, so it's a second function button. So press the second button here, and then distribution, and you get a whole list of these different types of distributions that we'll use throughout the course. But here you want to scroll down and until you find the binom for binomial, and there's actually 2 of them. There's a binom PDF and a binom CDF. Now the difference between these 2 is you would use the top one, the PDF, when you're trying to find the probability of exactly X successes. Like in this case, we want the probability of exactly 2 successes. Whereas you would use the CDF one if you were trying to find the probability of success for several X values. So for instance, if I wanted to know the probability that X was less than or equal to 2, that really requires me to add up the probability that X is 0, plus the probability that X is 1, plus the probability that X is 2. And so that's an accumulation of 3 different probabilities. Okay, so that's called the cumulative distribution function. Now later on you might run into some problems where you would use that one, but in this case we're trying to find the probability that X is equal to 2, exactly 2. And so we're going to use the PDF one, and you just have to press enter to get that to come up. So press enter, and then you just need to enter in a few things. The first thing we have to enter in is the fixed number of trials. In this case we're doing 5, and then make sure you put a comma there. And then the next thing you put in is the probability of one individual, or the individual probability of success. Okay, so in this case, they told us that 53% of the populate of adult smartphone users would say that they use their smartphone in a meeting or a class. And so that's going to be the 0.53. And then make sure you put another comma, because the last thing you have to put in is the number of successes that you're trying to find the probability for. And we're trying to find the probability that x is 2. Okay, so that's always going to be the case. The first thing you put in is n, the sample size, the fixed number of trials. The second thing is p, 0.53. And then the third thing you would plug in is x. And then after you do all that, you might want to close the parentheses off using this button here, and then just make sure you press enter. And you can see that the probability is about 0.2916. And of course, they want us to round to 4 decimal places. So 0.2916 would be the answer. And you can see that that's what they've got here. Okay, so just to wrap this up, if 53% of the population says that they would use a smartphone during a meeting or a class, then if we randomly select 5 adult smartphone users, there is a 0.2916 probability that exactly 2 of them would say that they use their smartphone during a meeting or a class. Okay, so I hope you found this video helpful, and later on I'll work some more problems from this section.